How's it going, everybody? Welcome to ZooBox. I'm Shaun, and today we're going to be talking about a movie. We're going to be talking about a new movie. The movie was just released. We're going to be talking about 2022's Morbius for some reason.
I should have died years ago. Why am I still here if not to fix this? I have a rare blood disease, and I'm running out of time. This could be my last chance.
You're up to something. What is it?
It's not exactly legal.
I want to see you get hurt more than you already have.
This would be a cure.
The film is directed by Daniel Espinosa. It's written by Matt Sazama, Burke Sharpless, based on a character created by Roy Thomas. It stars Jared Leto, Adria Arjona, Matt Smith, Tyrese Gibson, Jared Harris, Corey Johnson, and others. The logline plot synopsis is biochemist Michael Morbius tries to cure himself of a rare blood disease, but he inadvertently infects himself with a form of vampirism instead.
I'm more alive than ever.
Increased strength and speed.
The ability to use echolocation. And an overpowering urge to consume blood. How far are we allowed to go to fix something that's broken? Until the remedy is worse than the disease.
What a bummer. Don't you hate when that happens? You're out there just trying to science the shit out of things, you know? Trying to work with bats, trying to cure rare blood diseases, and then you become a fucking vampire? You become a plasma vampire? Sucking shit out of your hands? Well, you know, I am not actually a huge fan of Morbius. I'm not even very familiar with the character outside of the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s. Like, that is my only real knowledge of this character, and I liked him well enough. I remember being a kid watching the arc with Morbius, and you know, I liked it well enough. He's a classic tragic kind of Marvel villain. He's like misunderstood. He's got problems, dude. Like, he can't help himself. And it's been kind of interesting watching some of these Sony Marvel universe, basically, where they take the villains and they're making their own thing with them without Spider-Man. And Morbius isn't one that I would imagine lends itself to like being its own standalone thing. I know that it has its own comic book and it has its own characters, and like there's Morbius the Living Vampire. There was like a spin-off series of comic books in the same kind of vein as Venom, right? Venom starts as a Spider-Man thing, then has his own kind of life outside of that where he becomes kind of an anti-hero. I think Morbius has a very similar kind of track. But that's really all I knew about it. So I went into this movie not knowing much at all. I also went into the movie knowing that a lot of people didn't like it. I don't even know why I ended up seeing it or watching it, because I guess I was just really bored. Just like kind of boredom got the best of me, and I've been just dying to go see a movie. We're living in this kind of this dry spell right now. There's nothing really coming out except for April. April is kind of when in earnest, like, things are going to start coming out. Like, there's a couple cool movies coming out like this. The one I'm most excited for is The Northman. That's the one I'm really, really stoked for. So I hope I get a chance to go see that one as well. It would be really kind of sad if I went to see Morbius and then I didn't end up going to see David Eggers' The Northman. What a fucking putz I'd be. So I had very low expectations for this going into it. And when you have low expectations like that, when everybody's slagging it off saying it's really bad, you can be surprised. I remember when I saw, the other Sony Marvel movie, Venom, the first Venom, that also got kind of dogged by critics. Not as hard as this one's been dogged. I think this has like 14 or 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. So Venom was never quite that bad, but it was not a very well regarded film critically. But people liked it, and then you end up going to see the movie with really low expectations. It ends up being fun because it kind of just leans into the kind of movie that it is, and it embraces how fucking stupid it is, and it's self-aware in that respect. Morbius is more like in line with something that would have come out in like the mid 2000s. Like think of like Ghost Rider or Daredevil. The Ben Affleck movie, and then the Nicolas Cage Daredevil, not the sequel, not the one made by the Crank guys, which is like, it's better than the first one, but it's still like whatever. But those have there's a very like particular aesthetic that they have, kind of like it feels like it feels like you're in an Evanescence music video. And I would say Morbius feels a lot like that. It feels completely out of time with the way that superhero movies or just action genre stuff is like made today. It feels like something that came straight out of 2005, 2006. It's like overly serious. Every once in a while, it'll kind of wink at the camera a little bit and tell you that, like, oh, we're having fun. Isn't this wild and silly? But really at the heart of it is like this very kind of overly serious, overly pretentious, and pretentious at times, superhero story. And when I was watching it, I kind of left me wondering, I'm like, what happened? What the fuck happened? So this has been delayed like 3 times. This was supposed to come out like 2 years ago. So they've had plenty of time to work on it. And also even before then, I think they had like 2 rounds of extensive reshoots. So the studio was clearly not happy with whatever product resulted from their first dalliance with the screenplay and going out and filming, because I know Jared Leto was attached to this for a long time, but he didn't want to commit until he met like the right director and they were able to concoct the right story. And so there was like a lot of like hoopla behind the scenes about like how important Morbius was going to be. Jared Leto did not want to go into another bomb. Like he didn't want to end up in maybe this position he was with Suicide Squad, because his Joker, well, I've never really hated his version of the Joker. I thought it made sense contextually to the movie that David Ayer made. It's still like, it's the most unpopular Joker out of all the Jokers. And he was also very unhappy with the way the studio treated it and blah, blah, blah. And all that stuff's history. All that stuff's history. It's in the past. So I assume that informed his desires with Morbius. Like he didn't want to get burned again as a performer, as an actor. He was kind of trying to pull his clout a little bit. Jared Leto, whether you like him or not, is a household name. Like people do know who Jared Leto is. I don't know if he would put butts in seats, but generally when Jared Leto gets cast in something, it piques people's interest to a certain degree, right? Like he is an Academy Award winner. He is known for really going for it and making odd choices. Like I just talked about, the Joker from the Suicide Squad. Like he really leans into that. You can't say that he wasn't like going for it, that he phoned it in. Definitely not. So he has a little bit of clout. He has a little bit of clout with these kind of things. And I guess he pulled his weight around for Morbius. So I'm very curious to see to understand, to come to know what the circumstances were of like having to do all the reshoots, and how the studio over the pandemic and over all of the delays and release, like how they changed the movie. If you remember back when they first started marketing this, they actually leaned into the Spider-Man connections a lot. Like there's a moment in the trailer where he's like walking back past the Spider-Man poster. And then there's also a thing where you see Michael Keaton as that Spider-Man character. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. Well, who is he? Who is he in the Spider-Man movies? The Raven, the Bird, Vulture. That's it. I fucking got it. I got it. 3 times the charm. He plays Vulture, and he was in the trailer. Like they had shot a scene with Michael Keaton talking to Morbius, or Michael Morbius talking to Morbius, and so you were like, oh, that's interesting. Like they're kind of drawing into like the Spider-Man things. There was a sense that they're kind of trying to build their version of like a Sinister Six thing, Because at some point, I think they have a desire to bring Spider-Man back into the Sony movies, or at least have them cross over to one degree or another, which is something that has kind of played out, at least to some degree, with Spider-Man No Way Home. They've acknowledged that, like, oh, well, there's different universes, and there's different Spider-Man, and there's different Spider-Man villains. Tom Hardy has a little post-credits cameo in No Way Home. And if you see Let There Be Carnage, there's the post-credits thing is like showing you his character, his Eddie Brock, going into that universe. So people were intrigued with it. They're like, oh, that's interesting. And then when you actually watch the movie, they've cut all of that stuff out. If it ever was really part of the movie and not just a marketing thing, all that stuff is removed, and the post-credit sequence is not even the same one that they showed in the trailer. Like with Michael Keaton is technically in the movie, but it's just his voice, and it's not the same little bit that they showed in the trailer because he's not in his costume in the trailer. He's just like in some street clothes or something. So, yeah, they made some weird decisions like after the fact. It feels like a movie that was like heavily tinkered with in post. I will say this, it's paced pretty well. Like it goes by like really, really fast. But a lot of it suffers because it doesn't know how to build any characters for you to care about or to invest in. Nothing about it is very memorable. The set pieces are completely forgettable, and completely underwhelming. I didn't think the special effects were like awful, but they were not like, to the level that you're probably accustomed to when you go see like a Marvel movie. And even though those are often criticized for being cheap looking, this was very cheap looking. Like I said, it really does feel like a movie from 2005. And there's no way for me to really get around that. That's just what it feels like. And not a particularly good one either. I mentioned Daredevil, Ghost Rider. Is there any others that came out around that time? They're probably like Fantastic Four, maybe. I don't know. And I would say it's probably worse than all of those movies. And it's just because there's just no hook. There's no good hook. There's no good hook for a story. You don't care about the characters. You're just kind of told that you should care about them, but they're very uncharismatic. There isn't much chemistry between the cast as well. I wouldn't say anybody in particular is bad. Like Jared Leto is fine. He's delivering a performance that you would imagine somebody in a movie like this would deliver. But the chemistry between the cast, and especially with the Matt Smith character, like you're really supposed to feel, it's like brother versus brother. You're really supposed to feel some kind of pull there, and you don't. And also, it doesn't really make a good case for him even being a villain, period. Because like I said, there's a post-credit sequence where basically Vulture just kind of flies in and is like, I wanted to talk to you. I think we should work together because of Spider-Man. And Morbius is like, yeah, I think we should. Even though there was nothing leading up to it that would lead you to believe that Morbius would be that kind of person. In fact, the entire movie is about Morbius kind of fighting against needing to drink human blood. That's the entire movie. That's the entire thrust of his character. That's pretty much all that he does, really, honestly. It's just trying not to drink blood. And succumbing to the notion that he doesn't know if he's going to be able to create some sort of synthetic blood to take the place of real blood, and he can feel himself getting weaker. It's like it's not that interesting, and it's very predictable. Like the whole movie is super predictable. Was there anything I liked about the movie? I will say this: good pace, under 2 hours. Under 2 hours. I fucking like a hot 90-minute movie. Okay, I'm a 35-year-old married man with 1.75 children. Time is precious, especially for garbage like this. And I thought the design, the creature design, Morbius himself, the way Morbius looked, it looks exactly like the comic book character, from what I recall. And I thought it looked really good. It looks really good in the moment. And I was impressed by that. I wish it was in a better movie. I wish it was in service of a better story. There are things here that I think could work, and I feel like there's a movie in here that was just cut down to its barest essentials. So much so that it feels a little disjointed and incoherent at times, especially when it comes to character stuff and the character building stuff. There are clearly scenes and parts of like probably subplots that are just completely removed from the movie, which makes it a little difficult to make the leaps that they want you to emotionally. So if I were to suggest something, I would say probably skip Morbius. I know you already are. Nobody's going to go see fucking Morbius. I don't even know why I saw Morbius, to be honest with you. I just was really bored. I had extra time to kill. I was super bored. I wanted to watch something in a movie theater. It's like really the only thing that I hadn't seen up to this point, and it was under 2 hours. So I was like, here we go. Ticket sold. I'm in. But yeah, I can't recommend it. I cannot recommend it to anybody. Save your money. Stay home. Just watch. You can watch that new Spider-Man movie, which I also don't love, but it's way better than Morbius. It's way better than Morbius. It's got that going for it. Hell, watch one of the Venom movies. The Venom movies kind of understands like this kind of movie and just kind of gets it right. Because it just embraces what it is. It embraces the silliness, the goofiness. It's not trying to be something that it's not. And that's why they work. Because they're not actually good. But they work. And everybody in the movie commits to it. Like, those movies stand on Tom Hardy's shoulders and his crazy gonzo performance. And that's why, and it's able to do that. He is strong enough to hold the whole thing up. Not so much in Morbius. And in fact, I would say like Jared Leto's not even really given the opportunity with this kind of character as written to be able to do that. So much of it is just about the concept. Like, the character's journey is just boring. It's just boring, and it's very predictable, and you just see everything that's going to happen. You see it coming a mile away. Nothing is surprising or particularly interesting. And it's like it's kind of these things. One of these things I think you could have made the case for that you should not have really done like an origin story. Like, you could have maybe did like an origin in the first 10 minutes and then just skipped to like 5 years later and have him as Morbius doing something, going on some sort of adventure or whatever. It probably could have used that. It gets really bogged down in the origin stuff, which, like I said, is just not that. It's just not that interesting. It's just not. Sorry, Morbius fans. Morbius the Living Vampire fans. I know you're out there, and I'm sorry for you. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for me today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit. Go sign up at our Reddit. We're trying to get people over there to engage over there. A lot of fun over there. And also, if you are into buying things like Delta 8, Delta 9, or Delta 10, I am part of an affiliate program for a new sponsor that we're going to be doing some reviews of their products in the near future called Serene Tree. And if you go to serenetree.com and you click the affiliate link in the description and use the coupon code ZOOBOX, you get 20% off. And then I get a little kickback from you doing that. So much appreciated if you can. And we'll talk to you next time. Adios. Goodbye.